Today I want to talk to you about the parts of speech. We are actually going to be discussing 5 parts of speech today. First, let's talk about nouns. The first words you ever spoke were probably nouns. You learned nouns first because nouns are words that name things. You found that using nouns is much easier than pointing. Nouns sometimes name things that you can see, but not in the usual sense. These are abstract nouns. For example, love, peace, boredom. Most people know what boredom looks and feels like, even though they can't see it in the same way they can see a kitten or a lawnmower. These kinds of words name a quality or a feeling rather than a physical object. So nouns can be something you can see and touch, or they can be more of just an idea or a feeling. Along with verbs, nouns are probably the most important words in our language. Every sentence has to have at least one noun or pronoun in it, otherwise you don't have a sentence. Speaking of pronouns, that's our second part of speech. Actors and actresses who are about to take a hard fall usually stop and yell, "Stand in." This means that someone else who resembles a star is going to jump from a burning truck or leap out of an exploding helicopter. They're known as the stunt double. Here you can see below in the picture is Brad Pitt. To the right is his stunt double for one of his movies. Pronouns work the same way. When a noun is about to wear itself out in a sentence, a pronoun can hop in. The sentence reads better, the noun takes a break, and the reader is happier. Below you can see lots of different pronouns. Here's some more examples. Justin can become he. The noun Hannah becomes she. Our class can become we. Miss Riley's class can become them. Let's talk about adjectives. Adjectives are to a writer what paints are to a painter. They bring color, texture, depth, and detail to the scene that you are creating. Suppose you were writing a few sentences about a moonlit night. You might say something like, "One night I sat on the grass looking up at the sky. I saw the moon." Kind of boring, right? Check it out with some adjectives. One chilly fall night, I sat on the cool grass looking up at the sky. The moon threw piercing white light down upon me. Now you're able to visualize the scene. Adjectives give more information about nouns or pronouns. Remember, a pronoun can always stand in for a noun. Adjectives can tell us about the color, the size, the shape, the texture, the condition, or how many there are of a noun. Let's look at this example. 3 huge red ants crawled onto the glassy surface of the oval desk, ate most of a day-old enchilada, and immediately got sick. We have pretty much every kind of adjective here. 3 is going to tell us how many. Huge tells us their size. Red tells us the color. Glassy is describing the texture of the desk. Oval tells the shape. Day-old tells the condition of the enchilada. And sick tells the condition of the ants. Articles are a special type of adjective, and there are only 3 to remember, which makes it very easy. A or an and the. There are articles, but they are a type of adjectives. So if we're talking about parts of speech and I ask you to classify an article, you can refer to them as an adjective. Let's talk about verbs. Verbs move things. Planets, people, cars, bikes, and sentences of all kinds. Marvin slammed his finger in the door and howled, "Grab me some ice." Slammed, howled, and grab are all showing action. Lisa snatched her briefcase off the counter and ran for the subway. Again, our verbs are snatched and ran. Jay whined and whimpered until his mother said, "Okay, you can go to the party." Whined, whimpered, said, and notice can go. Don't forget about our helping verbs. Can is part of the verb here. It's helping go. So if I ask for the verb of that sentence, you would tell me can go. Not just go, don't forget the helping verb. Verbs are everywhere. Take a ride and you will see them littering our highways. Stop, merge, go, yield. Traffic signs are almost always consisting of a verb. Now let's kind of quiz ourselves and see if we can spot some verbs. Juanita gobbled 3 mini pizzas and a burger before she fainted. Gobbled is a verb. Fainted is a verb. Chad grabbed a pitcher of orange juice and sloshed it in Juanita's face. Take a moment and see if you can find the verbs. Grabbed is a verb, and sloshed is a verb. How about this sentence? Juanita bolted upright and gasped for air. Bolted and gasped. One more. You could have murdered me, she screamed. Here we have could have. Remember your helping verbs working together here. And screamed. And of course murdered. Almost forgot it. So could have are helping verbs for murdered. Like nouns, verbs are a key part of any sentence. Every sentence must have a verb. Now let's talk about adverbs, which I think are one of the trickiest parts of speech. You can tell what adverbs do just by listening to their name. Adverbs add to verbs. They give us more information about how, when, or to what extent the action of the verb is being performed. However, they also add to adjectives and to other adverbs. I think that's what makes them confusing. They're basically working like an adjective, but adjectives can only modify nouns. Adverbs modify kind of everything else, verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. For example, Louise stirred the mashed potatoes. Louise is my noun, stirred is my verb, the is an article, which is a kind of adjective, remember? And then we've got mashed potatoes. Mashed is telling me what kind of potatoes, which is my noun. No adverbs here. Let's add an adverb. Louise stirred the mashed potatoes menacingly. Now I've got an adverb. Menacingly is telling me how Louise stirred. It's adding meaning to the verb. So even though menacingly is not really anywhere close to my verb stirred, that's what it's giving me more information about. It's telling me how she stirred. If you write, the salami sandwich was amazingly delicious, you are telling us how delicious it was. Amazingly this time is an adverb that gives us information about the adjective delicious. It's telling me how delicious. So here I have an adverb modifying an adjective. If you write, Mr. Keith rather tactfully insulted the other coach, you're telling how tactfully he insulted. Rather is an adverb giving added information about another adverb. So let me kind of slow that down for you for a second. So tactfully is an adverb modifying insulted, a verb. It's telling me how he insulted him. He did it tactfully. But then I have another adverb modifying tactfully, telling me how tactfully. How tactfully? Rather tactfully. Here are 3 hints to help you recognize adverbs. They often end in ly, but not always. The words very and to are probably the most common adverbs. Words like never and not are also usually adverbs. Adverbs often answer the question how. They give more information about verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. Bernice was terribly mean to Dwight during the holidays. Where's the adverb? Terribly is my adverb. And we're modifying mean. We're saying how mean we were to Dwight. So in this case, we have an adverb modifying an adjective. Wayne's parrot has a very scary face. I'm going to give you a second, see if you can spot the adverb. Our adverb is very. Very is modifying scary. Again, we have an adverb giving us more information about an adjective. How scary? Very scary. The frog sat perfectly still as the snake slithered toward it. Can you spot the adverb? Perfectly. And perfectly is modifying still. It's telling us how still. Perfectly. Besides telling you how something is done, adverbs can tell you where it is done. She's going under for the 3rd time. Under is acting as an adverb. Now this is kind of confusing because under can also be a preposition. But in this case, it's modifying the verb going. It's telling me where am I going? Under. If it said something like, I am under a rock, Under a rock would be a prepositional phrase, and then we'd have it functioning differently. That is why grammar can be so confusing. We have words that are not always one part of speech. Sometimes they act as one part of speech, and sometimes they act like a different one. Her hair was combed up into an ice cream cone swirl. Up is modifying combed. It's telling me where. Combed where? Up. Come back, Toto. Come where? Back. So again, now we have adverbs telling us where something is done. Adverbs can also tell you to what extent. For example, I hate Joanna, or I almost hate Joanna. The adverb almost hints at a certain complexity in the relationship between Joanna and you. It tells the degree of your hatred.